Hi everyone, this is Brie Lester, and this is my presentation over the different types of exceptionalities in children as discussed in our course. Alright, I'm going to begin with talking about multicultural and bilingual children and how we can make them feel included in the classroom. Here you will find a few factors that can lead to children in this category feeling alienated from everyone else around them, consequently not being understood or well represented can lead to disruptive behaviors, as well as falling behind in school. I read in an article not too long ago about migrant students, how they tend to move around a lot because their parents have to relocate constantly for work. And doing this, it's hard for them to keep up with their grades. And a lot of them in this particular area, I think said 50% of them end up dropping out because they just can't keep up and they keep falling behind in school, so they find it more important to just drop out and find work to help to help the family, pay for things. So anyway, but moving on though, I did get this chart from the textbook on page 61, and this is obviously a shortened version. I just kind of chose a few things that we are talking about in this particular presentation. And so you can see here how autism, intellectual disabilities, emotional disturbance, hearing impairments, and TBI, how they all differ from race to race. Like I said, if you want the full chart, it is on page 61 of our textbook. So here's what we can do to help. We can apply the principles of universal design for learning and differentiated instruction by providing multiple learning materials and strategies, I have a hard time saying that word, such as discussion groups, games, labs, and teachers can provide learning engagement, and not to read off of this, but representation of information and acting on and expressing knowledge. Next, I'm going to talk about students with learning disabilities and some of their characteristics, as well as how to include them in class. These type of students will typically have a hard time following directions, processing new information, engaging in group discussions over their assignments, etc. Keep in mind that learning disabilities can be as minor as a simple reading deficit or as major as short and long-term memory difficulties. Doesn't mean the child is dumb, but they do have troubles in particular areas. Some of them may be amazing at like math, but have a really hard time reading and writing. A lot of these kids will have troubles with reading comprehension. Even though they are able to read, they can read an entire paragraph and have no idea what they just read about. So socially, these students, they can make lasting friendships and relationships with their peers just as those without a learning disability. Ways that we can meet the needs of these types of students and apply the principles of UDL, Universal Design of Learning, is first assessing their specific needs and deficits. Sorry, I have a computer over here, so I don't know which one to look at. And then we're taking those results and we're creating individualized education programs, the IEPs for these students. This can be using methods such as using a graphic organizer. That is one that was really used a lot in the book. They say that graphic organizers have been proven to be extremely helpful and effective in these types of students. Okay, moving on to communication disorders and how they act and perform in school. Sorry, this picture is kind of blurry. I didn't realize how pixelated it was until I got this up here. So these students can have severe aphasia or just a simple lisp. Some have difficulties pronouncing certain words, like certain vowels, and some kids have a stutter. In many cases, this type of disorder will not affect their ability to be successful academically or socially. However, in more severe cases, they will have a hard time keeping up with conversation, being able to read aloud in class, or they may not be able to follow morphological rules, meaning they're not able to form words and use them in relationship to other words. So as I just mentioned, some children with communication disorders won't have many issues academically or socially. However, some of them unfortunately will. Depending on the severity of their disorder, they may have a hard time in social settings due to their communication struggles. So subjects such as English or reading, they may struggle more than others since they're not able to fully understand the words or use them in relation to others. To assist those that need it, we can use graphic organizers with augmented print, which is the use of pictures, gestures, and things like that to supplement some of those words. And another thing that we can do is allow them more time during testing. All right, moving on to emotional and behavioral disorders. This picture I thought was funny. Reminds me a lot of some of the kids I had in my preschool class. Oh my goodness. So not all children under this category will qualify for an IDEA program, since some of their disorders may not be severe enough to affect them socially or academically. The same goes with those with ADHD, but we'll mention that here after this. But most of these children will suffer from some type of anxiety, separation anxiety, social anxiety, different types. And they tend to have severe mood swings, sort of like those with bipolar. They may even be the one bullying rather than being on the receiving end. A lot of these kids, they take out their frustrations on other people, and it's very unfortunate. And unfortunately, these types of students also typically have a lower reading score than those without. So typically, there are no single cause of emotional and behavior disorders, but applying principles of universal design for learning may be done by including classroom-centered intervention, which combines mastery learning and the good behavior game. So every time a student with an emotional or behavioral disorder is caught being good, they get some sort of incentive, like some sort of citation or reward to encourage them to continue these good behaviors. So we do a lot of sticker charts. And for whatever reason, those kids, oh my goodness, they want that sticker. So they will do anything to get it. It's simple, but it's effective. All right, now we're going to talk about ADHD and some of their characteristics. And this is information that I had taken from a previous PowerPoint, so for you, it's going to be just a review of what I've already done. But I had some good information here. So these particular children are going to find it very difficult to focus on one thing for more than a few minutes. Their minds are constantly going, and they can't control themselves without medication. They tend to speed through their work and making careless mistakes because they just kind of skip over some things unknowingly, because they're just flying through it. They're very impulsive, and they take as many shortcuts as they can find on their assignments. Although these things definitely have a negative effect on them academically, it doesn't mean that they're not smart. Many children with ADHD are perfectly capable of getting A's and B's as long as they have the proper resources, such as medication or even an IEP if necessary. Unfortunately, many children with ADHD, they do have social difficulties. They can experience social rejection, and they can have problems with interpersonal communication. Since they're very impulsive and very hyperactive, it's hard for them to carry on a conversation with somebody long enough to build a friendship. So oftentimes this can lead to emotional pain and suffering. So here's how we can help. We can avoid large groups when possible. We can provide examples of assignments as well as several different reminders to help keep them on track. So we can show students that we care about them and accept them for who they are. We can use color-coded organizers and agendas, which I don't know if you guys call them agendas or not, but when I was in school we had agendas, which is basically like a planner. It's like a notebook with all the different assignments that we keep in there. We can promote self-worth and confidence by using them as teacher helpers. I've done this several times, and it works like a charm. So these kids need they need to be constantly busy. And so if I'm constantly having them help me with something, then I'm like, hey, here, help me do this. Or, hey, Johnny's not completely done with this assignment. Why don't you go see if you can help him do that? And this method works very, very well. I've had a lot of success. All right, traumatic brain injury and hearing loss. This is the last one that I'm going to talk about with you. As I've mentioned before, this particular group of students is my absolute favorite. They remind me of my cousin who actually fell under the same category. Traumatic brain injury can come in many different forms, from complete paralysis to minor oral apraxia. These students can suffer from impaired attention and concentration, inability to problem solve, slowed information processing, and inability to memorize new things. They may be unable to engage in school activities for their physical disabilities. They can be socially inappropriate, have lack of social skills, and have no concept of apathy. And these things can all lead to poor self-esteem if not addressed properly. For those with hearing loss, they certainly struggle with the ability to say and pronounce words. However, academically and socially, they're basically the same as everybody else. Many times they just need people to slow their speaking so they can read their mouths, lip read. The book mentions, I'm getting ahead of myself. The book mentions team teaching as a way of helping with those with TBI. Practicing appropriate instructional pacing, having frequent student responses, allowing adequate processing time, and monitoring responses are also great ways to implement the UDL. For those with hearing loss, typically they just need an interpreter. Basically, nothing more is needed to people with hearing loss because basically they're the same as everybody else. They just can't hear you. So anyway, thank you for watching. That is all I have for you, and here are a list of my references.